"Don't forget Elvis," Greg said jokingly. "I never forget Elvis," Susan replied, slightly annoyed. "I can take it with me throughout the house, but when I go to bed, it's always there." "Look after me." She was too old to take him to bed, so she put him in his usual place, facing the bed. The remaining shelves and cabinets were filled with framed photographs and souvenirs, but no other plush toys. In fact, on that wall, Elvis was the only thing that truly belonged to her. Susan had had it since childhood, and she did not want to part with it. When she was 7 and he was falling apart, she made him a white suit. It had a high collar, flared pants, and tiny sequins. She wasn't skilled enough to sew clothes to fit, so she was sewn to his body. And this was better because it kept him intact. Previously, he was Edward, but the day the outfit was ready, he was renamed. Elvis watched them get into bed. "The next time we go to the cabin, I'll fix the dock." "He's wobbly," Greg said. "You said that last time," she replied. "I know, but last time I forgot my tools." "Do you mind going alone?" "Thought you liked staying in the cabin." "To be honest, I'm already a little tired of her." "Sorry." Greg inherited the cabin from his grandfather, as did the house in Southport. My grandfather was a moderately successful author of novels set in the Lake District. He built a hut with royalties from his first book. Then, when he finished the manuscripts of subsequent novels, he retired to the hut for final editing. He said that he liked peace and quiet. The hut was located on the southern shore of Devoke Water, which, at a mile long, was the largest of the Cumbrian high glacial lakes. The house is insulated and has running water, but electricity is supplied by a petrol generator, and heating is provided by a wood stove. There was also a tiny boathouse just big enough for a rowing boat. The road to Eskdale passes through Burker Fell. Just south of Eskdale itself, there is a place where you can park your car. From there, you need to cross the road and walk to Devoke Water. While staying there, Greg and Susan enjoyed their solitude. The only people they saw were the occasional fishermen or other tourists. Greg has always led a comfortable lifestyle. By inheritance from his family, he was given 2 small but successful businesses. Wool and shipbuilding continued to flourish in Cumbria. These days, he only looks there occasionally, traveled to London more often to meet with family accountants and lawyers. They met Susan at the Royal Birkdale Golf Club. Greg had just enjoyed 18 holes and Susan was tending the bar. He was completely blown away. At their wedding, there were raised eyebrows and whispers that barmaids were not suitable for the Clifford family. But she is 12 years younger than him. But Greg shrugged it off. By Clifford standards, Susan was ordinary, but she was sexy and full of fun. Either way, the family estate would end up going to their children, not her. They stayed at the hut 5 or 6 times a year. Susan enjoyed the peace and quiet, but could have done without walking. The paths were never dry. And lately, the loneliness began to tire her. A return to nature is, of course, good, but a TV would be nice. Jack Ducker, a local resident and family friend, would sometimes come here and look after the house. To help him, Greg bought him his first cell phone. They had been married for almost 3 years, and Susan was bored. When she was single, she never had any money, but she seemed to have a lot more fun. She hoped that her children would satisfy her, but they had no luck so far. They recently underwent an examination, which showed that Greg does not have any problems. But Susan was prescribed a course of additional hormones. One day she overheard Greg discussing this on the phone with a family member. The phrase, "I'm sure she's good breeding material," stuck in her head. He may have been protective of her in his own way, but he said she looked like a horse. It didn't give her any peace. What will he do if she can't get pregnant? Greg was an only child, the last of his generation to bear the surname Clifford. The family would be furious if a simple barmaid inherited everything, so children were a necessity. She secretly went for additional examinations. Then, one Thursday, the fateful call came. "Hello, Mrs. Clifford. This is Birkdale Fertility Clinic. Do you agree to receive results by phone? Or would you rather meet with a specialist?" "Everything is fine. Tell me now, please." "I'm afraid I have bad news. We have rechecked your results, and I am sorry to tell you that you are infertile. Oh no, is IVF suitable? Sorry, but it won't work. So it's either adoption or nothing. I'm afraid so. Should I send you the results by mail? No thanks. I'll pick them up next time I'm in town. It was a serious blow. While the kids didn't show up, she and Greg discussed various possibilities, and at a time when their problems were about to soon resolve themselves, Greg said he was not interested in adoption. Susan was afraid that he might now divorce her. He introduced her to another world, a world of privilege. But now Susan was not sure that she had ever truly loved him. She wasn't cut out to be one of those ladies who attend dinners. This way of life weighed on her. Yes, she has money, but she doesn't have many friends her age. The only friend she still talked to was Dee. If Susan couldn't ask her for advice from time to time, she would go crazy. Greg is a good person, but Susan has reached a dead end. She did not want to give up the trappings of wealth and at the same time did not really want the husband who came with them. But she will have a bad time with the divorce. She brought nothing to this marriage except hope for children. Susan was sure that adoption would not suit him. It would dilute the family line or something like that. She realized that she married him for his money and security. Not the most pleasant thought, but it's true. And if she cannot produce children to inherit, her position may become untenable. Greg is still young enough to find someone fertile. She married to escape a life of poverty. Now he can return there. The best outcome would be if Greg died soon. Then she can receive her inheritance and enjoy wealth on her own terms. Susie read somewhere that there is a fine line between love and hate. If she doesn't love Greg, then she must learn to hate him. Then it won't be difficult for her to kill him. She needs two things. First of all, more reasons to hate Greg. Secondly, a plan to get rid of it, perhaps with an accomplice. There was a knock on the door. A man in overalls, holding a tray in his hand, said, "Delivery for Mr. Clifford." On a tray that looked more like a shallow plastic box were half a dozen twitching crabs. "Sorry, I need to pick up the box, madam. Could you please bring a bucket of water?" Susan did so, and the guy knocked them over into the water. She noticed that their claws were held together with rubber bands, so that they don't attack each other, he said, as if reading her thoughts. "You can keep the rubber bands. How long will they last in this state?" "A couple of days. Longer if you have a section in the refrigerator with a temperature of 0 degrees. She took the bucket to the kitchen. It's typical of Greg to organize something without consulting her. She had a vague idea that crabs should be steamed, but didn't know where to start. A wave of rebellion flared up within her. Fuck it, they can eat them tomorrow. She hadn't eaten potato casserole with meat for a long time and was going to make it tonight. It's time to eat something she likes. How delicious, Susan," he said. "Did you prepare it?" "Certainly. Did you bring fresh crabs?" "Yes. Where are they?" "I flushed them down the toilet." His face painted a picture. Did he really imagine that she was capable of such a thing? "Kidding. They are in the kitchen in a bucket of water. It will be nice if you steam them. Or you can invite a chef." "Certainly. When we're done, I'll put them in the 0-degree compartment of the refrigerator. By the way, do you know the last part of making potato casserole with meat when you finish it in the oven?" "Yes." "Well, if we ever eat it again, why not try putting a layer of grated cheese on top?" Susan felt herself getting even angrier. Potato casserole might have been a common dish only for someone like him, but she knew how to make it, and she didn't need that damn cheese on top, and it didn't escape her that Greg said, "If we ever eat it again." She grabbed Elvis from the kitchen counter and returned him to her cubbyhole before going to bed. When Greg came to bed, she rejected his advances. This is not the time of the month to make babies. Better save yours. Okay, hatred for him began to form. Well, hostility anyway. But probable candidates for murder accomplices, as far as she knew, were not common in the circles in which they moved. Who is it among those below her on the social scale who can be persuaded, even seduce? "While you're away," she said the next morning, "I'll go into town and fix my laptop." He's acting up again. Go to Netflix. They do their job well there. I'm coming. No, why don't you try? Just go. Susan has already decided to use their services. She thought one of their employees was clumsy. If there is such a thing as a nerd with muscles, this is it. She climbed into her Mercedes SL 500 Roadster. As soon as she was in town, the first thing she did was call Netflix. What can I do for you, Mrs. Clifford? She had always disliked the manager, who was more irritable than polite. Oh, last time I had problems, this young man helped me a lot. I'm sure he will do a good job again. This is Roger, the manager said reluctantly. She joined Roger at his workbench. Before we begin, may I offer you some coffee, Mrs. Clifford? Please call me Susan. Yes, with pleasure. Okay, Susan. Milk and sugar. Just a little milk, please. It was probably instant, and she didn't drink the drink again, but she liked Roger, and the coffee would brighten up the visit. She placed the computer on the workbench. The surface was slightly dirty, so she pulled up another chair to place her purse on. It was Fendi, more expensive than a laptop. Standing, she collided with Roger, forgetting how quickly she could drink a cup of instant tea. She screamed as hot Nescafe poured all over her Coco Chanel t-shirt. She left the house without a bra, and Roger, who already couldn't take his eyes off her breasts, now gawked at them. She pinched her t-shirt and pulled it off. "Crap, I am so sorry," he said. Then he covered his mouth with his hand. "Sorry! Idiot!" the manager shouted. Susan regained her composure. "It's okay. It's completely my fault." She turned to Roger. "Could you take me to your bathroom?" Roger led her to the back of the store. "Can I offer you anything?" "Another shirt, please." Susan took hers off and wet it under the tap. Then I used it to wash the sticky coffee stains off my chest. The door opened and Roger appeared. He handed her the shirt and stared at her, topless in the mirror. She turned and met his gaze. "Looks like you reached the finish line again faster than I expected." She was proud of that phrase and smiled when his face turned even redder. He mumbled another sorry and, to his credit, looked her in the eyes. Then he retreated, leaving her with a large gray t-shirt with the company logo in her hands. Returning to his workbench, he still looked confused. "Your phone rang while you were changing clothes," he said. Susan looked. It was just Greg, probably checking on her. She ignored him. Would you like some more coffee? Do you have a lunch break, Roger?" "Yes, in about half an hour." "What is the manager's name?" "Mr. Braugham." "Mr. Braugham, I need to take my shirt to the dry cleaner. Is it okay if Roger comes with me and we have a coffee at Costa? I'll explain my computer problems to him and then go home. He can call me when it's fixed." "Of course, Mrs. Clifford." As soon as she described the problems, the seduction took off. Dry cleaning isn't the most romantic setting, but it'll do. "Will you work tomorrow, Roger?" "No, I have a day off this Saturday." "Are you doing anything special?" "Not really." "Susan." "Then how about this? I have a couple of errands to run in town, then I'll go home and call your Mr. Braugham. I'll tell him that you were a real gentleman and I want you to fix my laptop." "Great. When you're done, take it home with you. Then, tomorrow, come here and pick up my shirt. Bring her and my laptop into the house and your debt will be paid. He doesn't actually owe her anything. But if he thinks he does, it will make her position stronger." She paid the receptionist and gave Roger the receipt. "No problem." "Fine. My husband is out playing golf before 9, so why don't you jump up after 9:15? "Certainly. My address is in your files, but just in case, I'll give you my mobile number. When you arrive, we can test your laptop on site." At Costa's dry cleaners, Susan leaned back and pulled on her t-shirt, studying the logo upside down. Her nipples stood on end. "Netflix," she drawled. "Do you like working there?" "So far, so good, but I'm taller than them." "In what sense?" Now, in familiar territory, he sounded more confident. "They just have work experience. I'm saving money to start my own business. Same as Netflix, but at a higher level. And I will make things, not just repair them." Roger was describing one of his gadgets when something he said caught her attention. Now I call it just a gizmo, and it looks kind of rough. And what is she doing? You enter the room, press a button, and direct the device in a circle. It beeps and lights up red if there is anything electrical. And the beep gets faster the closer you get to it. You will be able to determine if there are bugs there. You know, spy bugs, not insects. I think I saw something similar in the film. Yes, but mine is better. It even beeps if the device is turned off, but instead, you get a yellow light. Listen, could you bring it tomorrow? Show me your thing and maybe I'll show you mine. Fine. Either he didn't get the hint or his blush was now under control. She looked down at her breasts. Well, now you've seen them. So what do you think? He blushed again. She wondered how far she could take him. What could he be willing to do for more? Or for money to start your own business? You are very beautiful, he purred. Thank you. Although I'm sure that such a handsome young man like you has prettier girls. I don't have a girlfriend. But you must have seen enough breasts. No, not as beautiful as yours. How nice. Do a good job on my laptop and I might show them to you again. At the fertility clinic, Susan introduced herself at the reception desk. Oh, you came to fix our computer? No, I borrowed this shirt. I'm Mrs. Clifford, and I've come to collect my test results. Mrs. Clifford, of course. We talked to you on the phone. Returning to the house, she found that Mrs. Fryer had arrived and went inside. Susan wished she had knocked. It's normal that the cook has a key, but it was impolite to just enter. She had already mentioned this to Greg, but he didn't think it was a problem. I heard you have a problem with steam crabs. Where are they? Here, Susan answered, opening the refrigerator. Oh my God, not a very good start. You should have kept them in a bucket of water. In fact, she did a great job and soon Susan was admiring the delicious-looking crab salad. Looks good. Greg will be home any minute. I'll wait for him. No, he won't like it. He's having lunch at the golf club and asked me to put the salads in the fridge for the evening. Said you might have to make do with the last casserole. Luckily, Mrs. Fryer left before Susan could answer. She was furious. Have to. Arrogant bastard. So he's calling the cook about his dinner plans, not me, she muttered out loud. And organized today's food. She ate the rest of the cold potato casserole. Then Dee called and poured her heart out to her, but without mentioning the murder. Finally, I called Roger. What are you doing this evening? Do you mind if an elderly woman joins you? No, you should drop by tomorrow. She was still furious when Greg walked in. How dare you tell Mrs. Fryer about our eating routine and not tell me? What? I was just trying to help. I called you on your mobile, but you didn't answer. Susan ignored it. I felt like such an idiot expecting you to come and have lunch with me. And this stupid woman who knew that you were in the club simply mocked me. I'm sure that's not true. You weren't here. You're never here. This is unfair. She went upstairs, leaving Greg sitting and looking at his salad. When I returned, he was still there. Where are you going? Walking with a friend. And you're dressed like that? Susan looked at herself. Okay, this skirt is the shortest and the heels are the highest. And the lilac blouse is quite transparent, emphasizing the absence of a bra. What's wrong with the way I'm dressed? These are just clothes. I have worn them before. She didn't wear it without me. So now you have to inspect my clothes before letting me go outside? Would you like me to lift my skirt so you can check if I'm wearing panties? Maybe I'm naked here. Don't be so rude. And there is no need to be dramatic. You can wear what you like. It was just a remark. He stared at her chest. Not the first man to do this today. It's cold outside, Susan. You'll freeze. I have a coat. Where are you going? Why should I tell you? You don't tell me where you are all day. Very good. With whom? With Dee. A car horn sounded outside. This is my taxi. Is there something wrong with your car? No, but we'll probably have a little drink. but I've never played billiards before." "It's okay," said Roger. "I'll teach you." "Why is it so quiet here? The main bar is full of people. There's a snooker league team in this pub, but it's all mixed up. They usually play midweek, but today they have an away match." "Ah." Greg threw the last salad in the trash. He told Mrs. Fryer countless times that he didn't like tomatoes, but she never remembered. Or perhaps she remembered, but just didn't agree. Today was not the best day. Susan hadn't been in a good mood lately, but he didn't know why. I thought about her offer to look under her skirt. Was this a bluff? Of course she didn't go out without panties. With your left hand, spread your fingers like this, forming a stable bridge. Roger took her wrist. Like this? Yes. And with your right hand hold the thick end of the cue, strong. His right hand wrap it around her. "Are you sure that this is the cue I'm holding?" He breathed into her ear, and she suspected that it was his arousal touching her skirt. Greg wandered around the bedroom, not quite sure what he was looking for. In the bathroom, he took a cellophane package out of the trash can. Crotchless tights. His wife went outside without a bra, wearing pantyhose without a crotch. Then, against his better judgment, he looked in the laundry basket, where he discovered a gray Netflix t-shirt. He pulled it out and smelled it. It smelled like Susan. Elvis sat on the tank and watched him. "Do you know anything about this?" asked Greg. "I think you want to teach me billiards so you can paw me with your hands. A different type of pool would be more suitable for this. I'll teach you how to swim breaststroke. Insolent bastard. Why do I have to bend over so much? To properly line up your shot, your chin should touch the cue. Why do you have to lean so close to me?" "To make sure I put you in the best position," Roger replied. His confidence grew. "You just want me to bend over so people can look under my skirt. There's no one here to look in. But if that bothers you, I can protect your short skirt from prying eyes." "How?" He let go of her hands and stood right behind her. Then, hugging her waist, he pressed his crotch against her. "There's something hard pressing against my butt. This is my thing. You can take it home tonight if you want. Take me home too. I'll press something else to your ass." He took the bait. Downstairs, Greg poured himself a glass of Aberlour. "What's happening? Is there really any reason to be suspicious?" He picked up the phone. "Di, how are you?" "Oh, hi, Greg. I'm fine. And you?" "To be honest, I'm a little worried about Susan. I know that you girls are like friends. Is there anything I should know?" "Sisterhood, Greg, I cannot tell you. But no, it's okay, as far as I know. Perhaps you should come over for lunch soon. She always feels better after talking to you." "With pleasure." They said goodbye. So Dee is home, but Susan is not with her. Otherwise, she would know about it. She left looking like a fallen woman and lied about where she would be. Roger wanted to get in a taxi with her. "You can drop me off on the way." Susan decided that the flirting had gone far enough for one evening. Therefore, she said that he would have to walk home. But to maintain his interest, she kissed him goodnight. A long, wet kiss. "See you tomorrow." On Saturday morning, Greg was restless and looked in the laundry basket again. At least Susan wore panties last night, albeit black ones. They were lying there along with the crotchless tights. He went to the golf course. Susan stood up and took a quick shower. Last night was so much fun, she couldn't remember the last time she'd been in a proper pub. Roger responded to her flirting and made advances as well, but he kept his distance. He was due to arrive any moment, so she left her hair damp and pulled on another t-shirt and her shortest shorts. "Come in, Roger. Do you have a hangover?" "Nope, I need more beer. Here are your things." "Great. I'll check the shirt first." She unwrapped it from the dry cleaning bag and took off the one she was wearing. Roger glanced down at her bare breasts again. This time he was grinning instead of blushing. She pulled it on and stood in front of the mirror. Then she ran her hands along the front. "Come here for a minute." He stood behind and looked at their reflections. "I feel some harshness right here, where I managed to pour the coffee. What do you say?" Susan grabbed his hands and placed them on her chest. "Is it still tough?" He ran his hands up and down the material, returning to her breasts and pinching the mounds. "It's definitely tough out here," he said. "Me too." In terms of foreplay, it wasn't much, but she decided it was best to take it slow. "You are a bad boy." They checked her laptop, then sat in the living room with coffee. It's time to touch on the topic. "I know you want more from me, Roger, and you think I'm teasing you. So, it's time to lay the cards on the table. You want sex with me?" "Yes." She took his coffee and placed it on the low table next to her stuffed animal. Then she placed one of his hands between her thighs. She knew she was warm and wet. He squeezed there. "Feel how you turn me on, Roger. I want everything you want. Maybe we can make a deal." "What deal?" Susan removed his hand and told him everything. It took a while, and she poured it all out, describing what a terrible bully husband she was. Roger nodded and seemed shocked by her vile proposal. She worked on his manhood and brought him to the finish line, thereby sealing the deal. When he left, she took Elvis. "Not a word from you." When Greg returned home, Susan was sitting at the computer. "Can I ask you something?" he asked. "Certainly. Why was there a Netflix t-shirt in the laundry basket?" "When I took my laptop to be repaired, one of the guys spilled coffee on my Chanel. I had to take it to the dry cleaner and Netflix lent me one of theirs." "It's clear. How long have you been wearing crotchless tights?" Susan stopped and turned to face him. "What were you doing, Greg? Sniffing all the dirty laundry? Do you prefer not to answer?" "I'll answer if you want. But why are you checking?" "You first." "Since the May holidays." "What?" "I've been wearing crotchless tights since May. When we went for fertility tests, they diagnosed a mild form of thrush and prescribed a uterine ring and Canestin. We had to abstain from sex for a week. Do you remember?" "Yes." "After it was all over, I started wearing crotchless tights. They are more hygienic. If you had looked under my skirt when I proposed, you would have seen this. Or would you prefer that I go for an evening stroll in stockings? I have some clues. Now answer me." "You don't need to be so aggressive. I saw a t-shirt in the laundry basket and got curious. And at the same time, I noticed a plastic bag from pantyhose. I didn't know you wore them all summer?" Susan thought, "No, you don't notice my underwear. You don't notice anything at all." Greg thought that answer was good, but you lied about going to see Dee. On Sunday morning, they calmed down and behaved politely. Greg wondered if he had been a little rough with Susan. He was always polite, but he was more used to giving instructions. He decided to put her mysterious evening on the back burner. Okay, she came out braless and in a bad mood, but he didn't want to get caught with another plausible explanation. "Do you know that we are having lunch at the golf club?" "Yes, I'll be ready by 12. "Do you mind if I arrive an hour earlier? I bought a new long starting putter and would like to practice on the course." "No problem. I need to do some laundry." Susan was at the sink in the utility room. After the infection, she washed and rinsed all her linen thoroughly by hand. On the way to the garage, Greg stopped behind her and patted her ear. "Friends again?" "Certainly." She turned and kissed him. "But I won't hug you, my hands are wet." "Did you take everything?" "Certainly." He closed the door and Susan heard the main garage doors slam open as he started his Land Rover. Her Mercedes was already in the driveway and she waited until the door clattered down before picking up her cell phone. Greg hit his forehead with his palm. He left his new long putter right outside the front door. And this after she asked if he took everything. He quietly slipped back and took the bag. Then he listened. "Have you thought, Roger? That's a lot of money, not to mention what nasty things you will do to me." "Yes, I tried your thing. It is fantastic. The first scan of our bedroom found everything electronic, including the light switches. Everything is yellow. The second time it flashed red was when it detected that my cell phone was charging. No, there is no need to check other rooms. I prefer sex on a big bed." "Well, perhaps on the headboard. You said that you want to see everything." There was a pause while Roger spoke. "Are you serious?" "Yes, but you must bring condoms with you." "We'll do it next time he's away. You can have it all." "I'll put all the appliances away in the bedroom, and no one except Elvis will be watching us. In the meantime, we still need a plan to get rid of Greg. He quietly slipped out of the car and let the Land Rover roll down the road before starting the engine. When he got to the field, he couldn't concentrate and went to the bar. Alcohol didn't help, so he stuck to pineapple juice. It was not difficult to guess that her lover, Roger, worked at Netflix. But getting rid of him sounds ominous. Did she mean get him out of the way so she could have sex? Or did she want to kill him? Their sex life had always been good, if a bit inconsistent. And now they were trying to have a baby. At least Susan insisted on using a condom with this Roger guy, although it didn't matter now. Enough with the promises of sex and sinister plots. He was furious. Instead of ending it, he wanted to catch her in the act and divorce her. The fact that some members of his family hinted at this when he married the barmaid made him even more angry. Now he'll have to live with the awkwardness of their "I told you so" looks. This bitch must suffer. And Roger Rabbit will get his share too. The wives of other men are out of reach. Can I join you, old man? What kind of poison should you take? Marcus, welcome. Just a pineapple, please. I'm driving. Marcus returned with the drinks. I drink brandy myself. Of course, Greg replied. All doctors are alcoholics. That's true, he admitted. And all the nurses are smokers. Are you without your better half today? She will come soon. You should join us for lunch. But first I'd like to clear my head. Ha! If given the chance, I wouldn't choose these. When God gave out brains, I think he confused brains with drains, sewers. No thanks, they stink, I said. Marcus had already told this joke, but he still burst out laughing. When the laughter died down, Greg made his statement. You're aware of all this nonsense about IT, aren't you? Susan, I'm going to London on Tuesday, Greg said, and I'll stay the night. Fine. I'll invite Dee. Good idea. It's Tuesday. I have already checked into the hotel room. I'll have an early night. I'm meeting with the lawyers tomorrow morning. Okay, said Susan. It's only going to be one night, so you better have some fun tonight. Entertainment? I thought you were inviting Dee? Oh yeah, she'll be here soon. Greg sipped his single malt cocktail and wondered what she was really doing. Probably already lying on their bed, having sex. Checking their bedroom for recording devices was tricky, but he liked the idea of photographing her. Not that it would excite him, but rather as a safety net in case plan A didn't work out. Susan checked her caller ID as soon as they hung up. Yes, the call was from the Lancaster Gate Hotel. She called them. Tomorrow I have a meeting with Mr. Clifford from Southport. Please, can you confirm that it arrived safely? Yes, he registered. Can I connect you with him? No need, I'll meet him in the morning. She then called Dee to clear up their stories. Roger was due to arrive soon. Susan went into the bedroom and turned on the appliance. She found all the usual things, but nothing unusual. She checked the curtains were closed, then went to the bathroom and put on lipstick. I studied myself in the mirror. Irresistible. He's infatuated and her makeup will soon be ruined. But it's better to show yourself in all your glory. With Greg dead, she'll slowly undo everything. Or, if he's a good lover, maybe he'll keep it to himself. What did the Americans call it? Sex buddy. But she was going to enjoy today, whether Roger followed through with her plan or not. Soon, they were in her bedroom. Susan stood in front of him, wearing only a thong, which he would gladly remove himself. Here are my girls again, she said, and they like the way you love. Roger was very happy to oblige. He undressed while playing with them and casually tossed a pack of condoms onto the bed. I hope you brought a lot. We have plenty of time. When he undressed, she sat on the bed and began to please his manhood. A minute, and he was hard as a rock. Very good, she said, leaning back to admire it. Look here, I learned this trick when I worked as a bartender. She opened the condom and put it in her mouth. Then, with her lips, she pulled it onto him. Aren't you afraid that you might hurt him? He asked. No, lots of practice. Are you doing this for your husband? It's not good to mention him. Susan, of course, didn't do this for her husband. It was assumed that they were trying to have a baby, and now that she knew she was infertile, there was no need to use it with anyone. But there was no reason to discuss this with Roger either. And if she's trying so hard to keep everything a secret, it would be stupid to catch a sexually transmitted infection at the last moment. Fuck me now. I'm all burning with desire. Just have fun the first time. When you are ready again, you can satisfy me too. He didn't need to be told twice. Susan loved the way he held her face in his hands and kissed her. It was strangely romantic. Despite her instructions, he was gentle and took his time. She hugged him and pulled him towards her. He picked up speed, and soon the smell of his sweat was overcome by the smell of his own deodorant. She liked it. Her legs wrapped around his waist without any conscious effort on her part. She grabbed his thighs fiercely and reached for his buttocks. Roger also crawled under her buttocks and inserted a finger into her ass. Then he began to fuck her harder, feeling the sperm rising from his balls. Lifting his face away from hers and leaning back, he reached the finish line and grunted. Susan was surprised to find that she too had climaxed, and with Greg, it took much longer. She wondered for a moment whether it was because of Roger himself or because of the depravity of someone else. She closed her eyes tightly and moaned loudly. It was great! She was delighted. What a stallion! Netflix is proud that the client is always satisfied. Susan smiled at him as they both came down from their high. This was a completely different Roger now. Confident, and even joked. Perhaps he is someone worth protecting. Go to the bathroom and get rid of the condom. Make sure it's washed off. Then come and hug me. He returned and looked at the shelf on the wall. I have already seen this plush toy. She looks like Elvis. This is him. Roger climbed onto the bed and they snuggled close to each other. I'm very slutty, she explained. Me too. I want to try everything. I have the impression that you might like what I have to offer. God, yes. Susan raised herself up on one elbow. But you know that I need your help in killing my husband. And when he's gone, I'll be rich enough to start your own business. Yes, you did. Consider me interested. Well, you said you might agree, but you're worried about the risk, so I'll tell you my plan. If you reject him, there will be no more sex. Just go away. But if you agree, you can stay all night and get enough money to get started. Fine. First of all, can you get some Rohypnol or something like that? No problem. Great. This is the plan. We have a cottage in the Lake District, near Devoke Water. The flight to Liverpool, Southport's nearest airport, landed late on Wednesday afternoon. It was short, but restless. The wind ruffled Greg's coat as he walked to the car. His mobile phone rang. It was Jack Dacre. There was a strong storm here last night. He tore off your moorings. He was pinned to the shore, and I tied him to one of your mooring posts. Oh, thank you, Jack. Do you think it can be fixed? Certainly, but you'll need to replace one mooring post. What's left of it is rotten, and a dozen meters of strong rope wouldn't hurt. Fine, I'll come when the weather improves. Is everything else still worth it? Yes. The cabin is fine, as is your little boathouse. There are a lot of logs under the tarp, and I put a few more stones along the edge to keep the wind from getting inside. Before leaving, Greg called Dee. Yes, she was at his house last night, keeping Susan company. No, she was not driving, but arrived home by taxi around 11. Everything was very believable until she overacted. And last Friday, when you called me, worried about her? Yes. Well, I forgot to mention. But that evening, she was also with me. I didn't say anything at the time because you invited me to dinner and I love Mrs. Fryer's cooking. You haven't lived up to expectations yet. Sorry, Dee, I'll do it soon. So the night he left, Susan went to Dee's. But Greg knew, if she was there, why didn't Dee say so then? And why did I mention this now? Unless she was asked to do so. I'm home, Susan. Do you miss me? He always called her by name. Never. Neither baby, nor beloved, nor sweetheart. Now this was also starting to irritate her, and he was late. I missed you, but while you're away, Elvis always looks after me. They hugged. Well, thank him for me. But now his duties are completed. Necessarily. What do I feel? Mrs. Fryer left a Lancashire roast in the oven. It will be ready in about 20 minutes. They ate at the dinner table. Susan would have preferred a tray in front of the TV. She wrinkled her nose as Greg sliced a wedge of Lancashire cheese. What is this obsession with eating cheese with everything? The hot pot was just stewed lamb with sliced potatoes on top. Nothing more than a cottage cheese pie. Who would eat cheese with this? I need to go to the hut. Jack said we almost lost our mooring. Can it be repaired? That's the first thing I asked. Yes, you can. And the forecast calls for a break in bad weather over the weekend. Tomorrow I'll go to my usual supplier and buy 2 new mooring posts and a couple of hoses. Sleeves? Metal sleeves. Well, you know, a hole is dug. A sleeve is inserted, it is filled with sand, and a mooring post is inserted. A shovel of cement and you're done. It's too wet to drive the stake straight into the ground. I'll do both. Understood. Do you need help? I thought you said you didn't want to go this time. But it sounds fun. Sign me up. Then this weekend. We'll set off on Friday after breakfast and do everything in daylight. By the way, have you seen my mobile phone? Asked Susan. I could swear I left it on the coffee table. I think I saw him by the bed, doing exercises. About. I'm going to the club for a couple of hours. Would you like to join me? Not this time. I need to wash something by hand. Fine. Roger, everything must be done this weekend. Then you will have to take sick leave. You need time off for Friday and Saturday. Don't worry, you won't be working there for long. Meet me tomorrow in Costa at lunchtime. Susan returned with the phone downstairs. The plan was coming together. On Thursday after work, Roger picked up the rental car. He would love it if his friends saw him driving around in a Toyota Land Cruiser, but he had to keep it a secret. It's a shame he had to pick her up on Saturday night. But if Susan helps with the money, he might soon be able to afford his own car. Early on Friday morning, Roger drove onto the M6 highway. After leaving the highway, the GPS led him to a small parking lot from which he could drive up to the barn. He didn't need to go off-road, but such a car would look less noticeable in these places. He took off his shoes and put on his new hiking boots. Susan bought them for him, and they were the most expensive pair he had ever owned. They were comfortable, but he still put on an extra pair of socks. Then, in full wet weather gear and with a backpack, he set off for Devoke Water. By the time he reached the hut, he was starving. The hut is nestled on the shore in a small bay between 2 bays. Being the only building on the south side, it was hard to miss, but the view of the pier was still calming. He looked around. There was not a single tree visible around the lake, but, oddly enough, to the left of it, there was a small island covered with trees. He wondered why they grew in the center and nowhere else. To his right, on the far bank, stood an old stone boathouse, looking abandoned and eerie. He made himself as comfortable as possible behind a rock ledge. It wasn't raining, but the grass was still wet. In fact, she was wet underfoot the entire hike. It was almost time for lunch, and Roger opened the flask of soup and sat down. Okay, he could endure it for a few hours. Tonight he will sleep in a warm cabin with the beautiful Suzanne. He had barely started his first sandwich when he heard them approach. God, he was only an hour ahead of them. They crossed the last small beck, both with backpacks larger than his. They were carrying materials to repair the pier. These sleeves are heavier than I thought, Greg said. It's good that you went too. Will we do everything now or in the morning? I forgot. First, let's do our usual procedure in the hut. And then we'll do it today, while there's still daylight. Susan didn't like routine, but this one made sense. She entered the house and Greg started the generator. Then he spent a long time lighting the wood-burning stove, using the driest logs from the stack by the stone fireplace. Susan walked around the house and opened all the windows to allow air exchange and opened all the vents. Then she opened a bottle of red wine and poured it into a decanter. It was one of the bottles Greg had brought here on their last visit. Then she went back, closed the windows and vents, and the hut warmed up. She took out their special glasses. Those were released after the release of the Lord of the Rings movie. On her glass was a picture of Legolas, her beloved. On his, of course, Aragorn. When will we drink wine? She asked. As soon as we finish the pier. She looked at the Rohypnol tablet, but decided to put it in his glass at the last moment. Then she went and made the bed. 3 hours later, the pillars were in place. It's too cold to watch the sunset outside. Let's get into the warmth. In the morning, we will christen the pier and go on a boat ride for an hour. They sat comfortably on the old sofa. I'll go pour some wine, Susan said, and went to the kitchen, returning with glasses. Let's have a drink with toast, Greg suggested. Get up. They stood in front of the fireplace. To the next Clifford, he announced. I have a feeling he or she might be conceived tonight. Susan smiled and they clinked their glasses. I have an idea, Greg said excitedly. Take a pen. She went to the old sideboard and found one. Greg hurried to the kitchen and returned with a cork and a bottle of wine. They sat back down on the couch and Greg wrote 10/17/2014 on the cork, then GC, and handed it to Susan. Now put a plus sign under my initials and add yours. This will be a reminder of this visit to our house. Our last visit, she thought. It was still light when Roger saw the signal. He knew which window was the bedroom. The curtains were closed, the lights turned on and off 3 times. He stood up and headed towards the hut. Around 6 in the evening, the small rowing boat reached the middle of the lake. There the oars were raised and the boat rocked alarmingly when something heavy splashed into the icy water of Devoke, always cold at any time of the year. Something heavy slowly sank to the bottom of the lake, to a depth of 14 meters. The only witnesses were a few large brown trout, but they weren't interested, at least for now. At 9:05 on Sunday morning, the telephone rang in a house in Southport. Hello? Hello? Is this the Southport Hire Service? May I speak to Mrs. Clifford? Sorry, she's not here. Oh, don't you know when she'll be back? No idea. Hello, Sergeant. Could you come down to the reception area? Some people want to report a missing person. Okay, send them to interrogation room number 2. Would you like tea or coffee? No, thanks. I've seen shows on TV. Police snacks are always terrible. Right. Let's start with your name and who is missing. My name is Greg Clifford. I live in 8 Blackpool Road, Southport. My wife Susan is missing. When was the last time you saw her? On Friday the 17th. I left early to go to our house in the lakes and she stayed at home. Detective Sergeant Fleming later studied his notes. Let me just retell the events in chronological order. I understand that on Thursday, the 9th, your wife said that she would visit her friend Dee Watson the following evening. But on Friday night, she announced that she is, in fact, dating a younger lover, and you'll have to learn to live with it. She then left dressed like a fallen woman. To use your own phrase, can you tell me what she was wearing? A transparent blouse without a bra and a short skirt. She had no panties under her skirt, just crotchless pantyhose. Are you sure? Yes. She lifted her skirt and showed it to me, and she said that before she got home, Roger would have it. And what was your reaction to this? I didn't want to lose her. I decided to think about it and see if it would get out of her system. I thought this might be the last fling before we have kids. You then went to London on the night of the 14th. Yes. Before leaving, I told Susan that she had until the weekend to end her affair or get a divorce. On Thursday, I asked if she wanted to go to the cabin with me the next day. She loves the privacy of Devoke water, and I thought a trip might fix that. She said she'll think about it. But you didn't go? No. You say that you went to the lake alone and repaired the pier. Right. But they didn't stay for the weekend, but returned that same evening. Why? I thought she might take advantage of my absence to have sex with this Roger, but then he became worried that she might run away with him and thought that they might steal things or empty bank accounts. And you say that everything was in order in the house, but your wife was not there? Why didn't they immediately report her missing? Because he gave her until the end of the weekend. She didn't seem to take anything of value, so I kept my word. Yesterday, Sunday, was her last chance to return if she had gone somewhere for the last dirty weekend. And the phone call on Sunday? A car rental company wanted to talk to her. Now that I think about it, it's really strange. Her Mercedes is in the garage, so I can't imagine why she needed to take another car. Sorry, Mr. Clifford, but we need to check your house. Can we go there right now? Sure, no problem. Like I said, I've seen every TV show, so I understand that I, the person of interest, am the last person to see her. Alive, he thought. Thanks for understanding. I'll go and find a female colleague. Could you go into the bedroom for a moment, Mr. Clifford? Called Constable Gorton. How can I help? Sergeant Fleming mentioned a lilac blouse, but I don't see it. I checked your utility room. There are no clothes there, neither washed nor soiled, nor in the laundry basket. God, I didn't even think about it. Greg spent time going through his clothing drawers and wardrobe. Then he sat down on the bed, resting his head in his hands. This will sound strange, but usually I don't pay much attention to what my wife wears. Sorry. Do not need to apologize. Most men don't. Sergeant Fleming joined them. She wore the same outfit she was wearing when she had sex with him. Lilac blouse and short skirt. And when she lifted her skirt, I remembered something else she said. Continue. She said, I have 18 pairs of panties, Greg, but I don't wear any with Roger. I just checked. All 18 are here. The only thing missing is her crotchless tights. But strangely enough, her hiking gear and boots were also missing. Quite a comprehensive description, Sergeant, she said. And one more thing, Greg said, pulling out a Netflix t-shirt from another drawer. Roger probably works around here somewhere. Before leaving, the police took down the location of the shack in detail, and Greg gave them the key. He himself sat in the living room and recalled recent events. Despite Susan's precautions with the thing, Greg's idea paid off. He placed Elvis in the bathroom, and after she looked through the bedroom, he returned him to his place. Thus, Greg witnessed sex. Susan's condom trick was the most impressive, but his trick of slipping a camera and tape recorder into Elvis was inspiring. He heard all the details of the murder plan. From that moment on, everything was simple. The clink of glasses, running to the kitchen for a traffic jam, draining the undrinked wine into the sink and pouring yourself a new one, sprinkling your Rohypnol while Susan signs the plug. As soon as she lost consciousness, he stripped her naked and laid her on the bed with her ass up. Then he poured more wine with 2 pills and placed it on the coffee table, next to the note. First drink it all, Roger, and then take off all your clothes. Warm up your hands in front of the fireplace and come on. Fuck me good. Greg signaled from the bedroom and then waited in the kitchen. Roger drank some wine, which only began to take effect when he was finally a bull to take off his boots. He dowsed off by the fireplace, trying to remove his trousers from the wet weather. Greg then dressed the lovers in camping gear and carried them into the boat. It was already dark when they set off on their journey across the lake. Despite the icy water, swimming back into the water was exciting. Next, dry clothes, thoroughly washed glasses, a locked hut, and return home. He could guess what would happen next. A rental car in the name of Susan is parked by the lake. The boat should drift back to the shore, towards the exit of the lake. Recent activities and slutty clothing will be revealed in the hut. Either the police will drag them to the lake, or Susan and Roger will float to the surface of their own free will. Of course, suspicions will arise. Why did the lovers go there so soon after him? Argument? Suicide pact? Anyway, job done. It remains to take care of the last detail. Greg went into the bedroom and took the teddy bear. In the backyard, there was a metal barrel for burning garbage. He checked to see if there was dry paper and leaves in it, and placed a can of gasoline next to it. He reached under his high collar and picked up a piece of fur. Thanks again, Marcus. He took out a small recording device. After all, he won't need a camera. No divorce needed. He turned it and looked into the beer's ease. Who will notice the absence of one eye? Especially with a tiny camera replacing it. She brought you from the bathroom. Your job was to keep an eye on her. Greg Loft threw it into a barrel and doused it with gasoline, then threw a lit match. When the flames died down, he returned to the house. He sat down on the sofa with a large glass of Aberlour and said out loud, "Elvis has left the building." Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.